Okay, so we're going to rock into a little bit of a money mindset exercise with some work around shadows. Because shadows really just are things we get to look at, little gifts that are transmuted. A shadow gets transmuted into a gift. And so we're going to look at that around money. Really quick training here. So basically, stuff that comes up for you with regard to your relationship around money. And I'll give you some context here. So let's say, for example, you look at your relationship with money and you see these patterns, and then you go in and you look at where that came from, and you see, oh, isn't that interesting? I always feel like I'm going to run out of money. And my mom is always about, let me save all the money, let me go get the deal, let me get the discount, let me go to Costco and save a couple of dollars, because if I save money, I get praise, and if I get praise, then I feel worthy, right? And it's such a beautiful thing. So you can start to go in and look at each and every one of these money rules that you have, this relationship you have with money, and start to really question it and say, is that even mine? And it's such a beautiful thing when you unpack it, because you can realize, number one, what it is. Number two, it's not yours. Number three, now that you see it and you pulled it out into your line of vision, like out of your body where you're spinning it and out into your vision, you get to decide if you want to continue that same relationship or perhaps start a new relationship with money. And it's even more powerful to just sit with it, right? You don't want to judge it or resist it. Catch that too, because the second you go into judgment about it, you cut yourself off from the connection to really dissolving that imprint, dissolving that energy, and letting new energy circulate in that does align with what is true for you, right? So don't keep picking it up. Instead, just simply reach for the opportunity to say, oh my God, look what I discovered. Look at this connection I made. Isn't that interesting? Well, I don't want to carry that out. I don't want to continue to carry that out. It doesn't serve me, and it won't serve my generations after me. So here's my opportunity to choose something different. Then when it comes back, again, because it's a tape, and we're just redirecting that neural pathway. So until we can really dissolve it and start a new neural pathway, when it does come back, you'll notice you don't have that same reaction. And then you start to notice, oh my gosh, you know what? I don't actually even have an emotional response to it. I see the thought and I simply just say, okay, there it is again. How interesting. Good thing I don't think like that anymore. So if it's oh my gosh, I have this insurmountable amount of debt and I'm on a cliff and it's the end of the world. Oh wow, how interesting. Where is that coming from? Now I see it. It's not even my belief. Okay, good thing I don't think like that anymore. In other words, just because it showed up in your consciousness doesn't mean that you have to react to it. You always have a choice, right? And people that are unconscious, no judgment, but again, it's just constantly reacting to their environment, to other people, to their own thoughts, believing somehow that their happiness is dependent on what is going on outside of them, when in fact we are the creator of our reality. Or really the universe is supporting and coming through us to create that reality. So just simply understanding you do always have a choice, and it comes down to this. If you are embodying the woman that you're calling in, let's say you want to be, the 7-figure rent. Like I always say, I'm 7-figure Renaissance Diane. So if I'm Renaissance Diane, impacting millions of people right now and raising consciousness and raising humanity and raising the vibration on the planet, making 6 figures, I'm making 7 figures so that I can continue to do that. And I had this thought in my head that wasn't aligned about oh my God, I'm going to run out of money. Would I freak myself out about it and get all upset? Like, of course not, right? The deeper version of me that's anchored in her purpose, like then the question becomes, how would she respond? Right? So if you have this, who are you trying to, not trying to, but who are you being, right? What is it that you're calling in? And if you're operating from that place, if the thing you want is already done, if you're, making 7 figures, impacting the planet, debt-free, in the house that you want, in the body that you want, from there, step inside her body and then say, oh, I have the thought. How is she responding to that thought? Right? How is she responding to that thought? She's probably saying, isn't that interesting? Good thing I don't think like that anymore. Right? I don't have to get an emotional charge up about this. I don't have to spike my cortisol and my adrenaline, because once you do that, you're feeding it. It becomes an addiction. You're absolutely feeding it because you're going to battle with it, and you're spiking that adrenaline and you're signifying all this dopamine as well, and you become completely addicted to your own thought. And that's why we keep penetrating it over and over and over again. So why then do you, I know because I've been through this, like, oh, but I still put this version of myself outside of me. Well, it's just a decision. Decide, right? That's the old me. And I am embodying the new me. Right? So if you look at it and you're like, oh, I have this belief, it's not even mine. I see now, like, oh, isn't it interesting? My mom always worked in jobs that she hated because her belief was that she needed to make money and to save as much money as possible because that was her self-worth. Huh. Then you go, okay, it's great. I'm seeing all of this come up, seeing that it's not mine, and it's a good thing. And you get to go, okay, I trust myself, embodying that deeper version of who I am, anchoring into that, and never doing that behavior, right? That's proving that thought right. This is where you get to make the change. So let's talk about the shadows. If you're resisting this or judging yourself on it, it's actually a piece of you that you haven't integrated yet. So then you see it showing up, right? You see this show up in maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad, maybe it's your spouse, and you see it show up. Wow, I see it in my spouse. He's got this poverty mindset. It really triggers me. Everything's about saving and scrimping and every last dime, and it really triggers me. Oh my gosh. Isn't that interesting? Because do I own that quality? Is that a piece of me? Or like, I'm so triggered by materialism. Isn't that interesting? Oh, okay. Well, my parents knew that they wanted to live in a nice area, but there was that part of them that never integrated for themselves. Like being materialistic is somehow bad because that was the imprint they got. So even though it was like, let's move to a nice area, let's be ashamed of it a little bit. Let's not fully integrate. And then like, oh, did I take that on? Isn't that interesting? Being materialistic is somehow bad. So of course, if I get money, God forbid I should spend it on something, some luxury item, then I'm gonna be abandoned. So you get to play with this. And of course, how can you make money, save money, and spend money that feels really healthy if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be judged if I have this nice thing or do this nice thing, or oh my God, I'm going to be judged if I have money. So let me spend it all and blow it all so I don't have it, so then nobody does, disapprove of me or my choices. How are you breaking the pattern? Well, you don't actually have to know why someone else thought that way. All you're looking at is like, it's a reflection. It's triggering something in you, and your job is to pull that code out of your DNA and dissolve it here and now, right? Decide, I'm not taking that with me. I'm removing that code and I'm dissolving it right now. And then it's the diligence, right? So here's the steps. Continuing to notice. Refusing to judge yourself when you see that thought come up. And then as you practice that awareness, refusing to have the emotional reaction and instead start to consciously respond. by saying, what does the higher version of me choose? Continue to align with that embodiment. Even just having this conversation with yourself and describing those beliefs that maybe your parents had around money, or maybe it's the trigger from your spouse that caused you to look at that, right? Growing up feeling like, oh, like these beliefs didn't make me feel good. And now you can really see that they're actually not mine. So it's just a matter of diving in, trusting yourself, aligning with that higher version of yourself, and then ditching the self-judgment around it, right? And that's what we get to play with. So a little bit of shadow work here is just maybe some deeper questions to journal on. So I would invite you to journal on perhaps starting with these sentences and really look at what it uncovers for you, right? So I'm just going to shoot out 2 things, and then you can just journal on, wow, oh my God, what comes up? Rich people are, and just free write what words come up for you. People who have money are, what are all the words that come up for you, right? Boom, right away. And go like 5 words deep and see really what comes up. Because then from there you can start to identify the judgment. And then say, oh, isn't that interesting, right? So take the answers from each of those sentences and consider what being rich would mean for you, right? Like, if I become rich, I'm afraid I'll become boom, right? What if being rich made me, what would being rich make me? What would other people think I am if I were rich? What would being rich make me think of myself? Super powerful stuff, right? It's like, wow, isn't that interesting? You'll know that you're touching upon it, like you feel it in your system, and it'll have a hold on you. Like, oh, like almost even a resistance to it. You know that's a shadow. So how do we shift it, right? So here's the next part, is to go back and kind of recall those experiences from childhood when those judgments were created and anchored in, imprinted, right, in your aura, in your energetic field. So looking at that thought and going, where did you come from? What was the incident where I created this belief, or when I decided to reject or repress or suppress you? So for example, like, off the topic of money, but when I was a kid, I was always telling people my ideas and wanting them to do things. And, it was just because I wanted to have a really good time. But I constantly heard that I was being too bossy. I was told, like, nobody likes a boss. Nobody likes a bossy pants. That's a bad quality. You won't be liked. This is the perception I took on. This is the belief I took on, that if I was really, really strong or really, really smart or really, really creative, then I wouldn't fit in. And I took on the belief that, like, in order to succeed, I had to hide that, right? In order to fit in, I had to hide that, because otherwise people would think I was cocky or materialistic or an egomaniac and totally self-absorbed. And this belief made me think that I had to mute my voice, dumb myself down, play by the rules, not go all in, and it affected my whole life, right? Oh, I have to leave some in the tank so that I look good when I cross the finish line, right? And not win and not lose, but just kind of be there so I fit in. God forbid I should succeed. God forbid I should fail. Next question is to look at, how have you actually been an ally in my growth and evolution all along? So your shadow is, again, it's a point of evolution. So, being bossy, and now I get to transmute that, right? So it's like the part that you're hiding in shame is what you kind of have to lean into, or I invite you to lean into, where you're denying something. So if I'm denying, like, oh, I'm so loud, I'm so bossy, well, then I went out and I got every single degree. And I actually proved myself to be really smart, right? Like, and that's a gift. So how has that been a gift for you? It opens you up to the blessing of it and how you've developed. So interesting. And then the last question really is just like, why is this appearing now? Why now? Why is this evolving now? And it's perhaps because the universe keeps sending you the message, and now you're elevating to this level of consciousness where you're like, wow, if I can move this energy and heal from this, manifest like a motherfucker, like bring in exactly the life that I'm calling in. And that's where I wanted to go with this. I encourage you to journal on those and reflect on that, and see what comes up for you.